My friends, according to the gospel records, the only thing Jesus' disciples asked him specifically to teach them was to pray. I find that striking. They didn't request the secrets of miracle working or the art of parable telling. The disciples' main interest was prayer. It could be that the prominence of prayer in Jesus' own personal life was such an overwhelming lesson on its priority that they could not miss it. They wanted to know more about prayer, and quite frankly, so do you and me. First, prayer is communion with God. Our gospel today offers the model prayer or the Lord's Prayer in response to the disciples' request. But Jesus is not offering an answer to the power of prayer by a mere memorization of certain words. Prayer is not a way with words, but a way with God. Prayer is entering into the presence of God. When we first learn to pray, we do so by learning a set of words. But later on, as we get older, we learn to say our own words to God in prayer. And finally, our relationship with God will allow us to experience close communion with God, especially during those times when we have no words. The words of prayer are important, but remember that the words are meant to bring us closer to God. Prayer also calls us to focus on God. Jesus offered a prayer which begins with God, God's name, God's kingdom, God's will. Only afterward do we petition for daily care, forgiveness, and safety. Many of us still have to learn this. Many of our prayers sound more like wish lists than prayers. When prayer is more concerned with my desires than with what God desires, it's not prayer. Finally, prayer calls us to trust the very character of God. Now, to illustrate this trust, Jesus uses the analogy of a father for God. The very first words of Jesus recorded in Luke's gospel were those of a 12-year-old Jesus who said to his parents, "Didn't you know that I have to be in my Father's house?" And his very last words on the cross were, "Father, into your hands I commend my spirit." Of course, Father is not the only analogy used in the Bible. God is also compared to a mother. You can find it in the book of the prophet Isaiah, chapter 66, verse 16. "As a mother comforts her child, so will I comfort you." In other places, God is compared to a shepherd. Whatever the analogy, the point is the same. Trust the heart and character of God to provide and care for you. So the question is, how do you think God's heart is toward you? What is the picture of God's character that you carry in your heart? When you think of God, are you drawn to him? Jesus wants us to learn to pray so that we will grow in our communion with God, all the while growing in trust of the very character of God. He said, "Ask, seek, and knock." God is waiting for us with open arms.